Single dad mops the floor at night. The quiet lady sweeping is the owner's daughter. It was just after 10 p.m. when Ethan Callahan pushed open the back door of Harrow Plaza, the scent of floor polish mingling with the stale air of the empty shopping center. His mop bucket sloshed softly at his side, its wheels squeaking in rhythm with his steady footsteps. The night was cool, the kind that clung to your skin and reminded you of everything you hadn't fixed, yet the leaky window in the kitchen, the overdue electric bill, the dent in the car he could never afford to fix. But for now, none of that mattered. This was his shift, the quiet hours, the hours when the world went still enough to let his thoughts breathe, even if those thoughts often led back to the weight he carried. Ethan was 38, a single father, and the kind of man who had learned to count blessings by the minute. His daughter Lily was 9 and slept like a curled-up kitten in their small 2-bedroom apartment, a place they'd called home since everything fell apart 3 years ago. He worked nights so he could walk her to school in the mornings, the one routine they never broke no matter how exhausted he was. He moved through the lower floor of the plaza with practiced ease, past shuttered boutiques, dim-lit escalators, and displays frozen in yesterday's fashion. The scent of cinnamon rolls still lingered faintly from the bakery above a cruel tease to a man who had skipped dinner again. As he neared the central atrium, where artificial plants tried their best to look alive under fluorescent lights, he slowed. There was someone else there, a woman, sweeping. She was at the far end of the corridor, slim-framed, moving methodically with a long broom in hand. She wore an oversized hoodie, the kind you borrowed and never gave back, and a baseball cap pulled low over her brow. Her ponytail stuck out messily through the back loop. She wasn't one of the regulars. Ethan knew the night staff. He greeted most by name. But this one knew. Their eyes met for a brief second as he passed. She didn't flinch or look away, just gave a small, polite nod, wordless, guarded. He nodded back respectful, then turned his eyes forward, continuing down the hall. He didn't mean to stare. People wore their burdens in different ways, and hers felt heavy. Still, something about her unsettled him, not in a threatening way, but in the way someone does when they don't quite belong and don't want to be seen. He wrung out his mop at the end of the corridor, glancing back only once. She was gone. Only the quiet floors remained, and his own tired reflection in the glass storefront beside him. But the stillness had changed. Something had entered the silence, and he wasn't sure yet if that was good or dangerous. The woman returned the next night and the night after that, always in the same oversized hoodie, always sweeping the far corners of the mall where no cameras reached and no music played. She moved like she belonged in the shadows, head down, eyes scanning the floor, as if dust and scraps were secrets she needed to hide. Ethan noticed the rhythm of her steps before anything else. Deliberate, careful. Like someone who'd been taught not to take up too much space. She never started conversations. Never lingered near the other janitors during their coffee break in the back hallway. She came late, left early. If you blinked, you might think she hadn't been there at all. But Ethan noticed. Maybe it was because he understood the language of people who didn't say much, the language of exhaustion, of responsibility, held quietly. The same language he spoke with his tired shoulders and heavy heart. So he didn't press. Instead, one night he left half a sandwich wrapped in a napkin on the ledge just outside the closed bookstore. Turkey and cheese. Simple. Nothing special. He didn't expect anything from it. But when he passed that spot 20 minutes later, the sandwich was gone. The next night he left a note under the napkin. No onions this time. Hope that's okay. The following morning, scribbled faintly in pencil on the back of the napkin, was a reply. Perfect. Thank you. That was the beginning. No names, no questions. Just a quiet exchange between two night workers who understood the value of a warm meal and silence that didn't judge. Once he caught a glimpse of her as she took the sandwich, standing under the flickering hallway light, her face pale and thin, her eyes hollow but alert. She noticed him watching, paused for a second, then gave the faintest smile. Not bright, Not wide, but real. The kind of smile you offer someone who hasn't asked you to explain yourself. Ethan smiled back a little awkwardly, then looked away. He never asked why she was there, never asked her name. But part of him already knew she wasn't here just to sweep floors. She was hiding, and somehow so was he. The soft morning sun leaked through the curtains of their tiny apartment as Ethan flipped pancakes on the skillet. The scent of butter and syrup filled the air, and from the couch a sleepy voice called out, "Are they shaped like dinosaurs today?" Ethan grinned. "Only the best kind. A T-Rex, a Stegosaurus, and maybe a Triceratops if I don't mess up the tail." Lily giggled and padded into the kitchen in her fuzzy socks, her tangled hair pointing in every direction. She hugged his leg and leaned against him like she always did on Fridays, pancake. Fridays, a tradition they never broke. She was 7 with curious eyes and a heart that absorbed the world. Her backpack had more stickers than books, and her stuffed bear, Captain Snuggles, never left her side, not even at breakfast. After they ate, they sat together under a blanket on the couch. Ethan read from her favorite chapter book, his voice low and tired but warm. She followed the words with her finger, correcting him when he skipped ahead, which he sometimes did when the night shift still clung to his brain. Later, as he knelt to tie her shoes before school, Lily tilted her head. "Daddy," she asked. "Yeah, Bug. Why do you work at night when everyone else is sleeping?" He paused. How do you explain rent, groceries, and bills to a child who still believes the moon watches her dreams? So he smiled. Because someone has to make the world clean before it wakes up. She blinked, then nodded solemnly, like magic elves. "Exactly," he chuckled, "except taller and grumpier and with back pain." She laughed, hugged him tight, and whispered, "You're my favorite elf." When she skipped into her classroom, Ethan lingered at the door a moment longer. His bones ached and his eyes were heavy, but her joy refilled something in him. Something the night never quite stole. By night, he was a janitor, but by day, he was Lily's everything. And that somehow was enough. The night was dragging, one of those shifts where time refused to move and every corner of the mall felt colder than usual. Ethan had just finished mopping around the food court when his foot found an invisible puddle, probably the spilled dead soda from a late-night loiterer. He slipped hard. The crash echoed through the empty atrium as his knee slammed into the tile. Pain shot up his legs, sharp and immediate. He winced and leaned on one elbow, trying not to curse out loud. Then footsteps, light and fast. She appeared from the shadows near the arcade broom, still in hand, capped low over her brow. Wordlessly, she knelt beside him. "I'm okay," Ethan muttered, embarrassed more than anything. But she didn't leave. Instead, she reached into the pouch of her oversized sweatshirt and pulled out a crumpled tissue, followed by a little plastic bandage still in its wrapper. She didn't say much, just held them out, her expression unreadable. "You okay?" she asked softly. Ethan paused, touched by the unexpected care. "Yeah, just my pride." She smiled barely. It was a twitch of the lips, a soft thing but real. He took the bandage, still stunned, and wrapped it clumsily over the scrape on his knee. Then just as she was about to turn away, she added, voice even softer than before. "Thanks for the sandwiches." Ethan blinked. "You knew it was me." She nodded. Her eyes, usually downcast, met his now. They weren't the eyes of someone weak or uncertain. They were sharp, intelligent. Guarded, yes, but also tired, like she'd been carrying a weight far heavier than a broom. "You're welcome," he said after a beat. That night, the silence between them wasn't as empty. He finished the rest of his shift, limping slightly, but lighter somehow. She kept sweeping, but every once in a while she'd glance over, and he'd smile back. The air outside the loading dock was sharp and damp, still clinging to the last breath of winter. A half-lit bulb flickered above Ethan's head, casting tired shadows against the dented dumpster and old crates stacked near the door. The world was asleep, but Harrow Plaza, at least its bonus, still stirred with the quiet, uncelebrated work of the night crew. Ethan leaned against the cold metal railing, flexing his sore knee. The fall earlier hadn't done much damage, but at his age, and after this many long shifts, everything ached longer. He sipped slowly from his dented thermos, the coffee lukewarm, slightly bitter, but comforting. A moment to breathe. Then she appeared. The woman, same as every night. She walked with her head slightly down, broom in hand, sleeves pulled over her wrists, her silhouette wrapped in an oversized hoodie. She was always neat and her movements deliberate, a ghost in the fluorescent hum. She moved as if trying to make as little impact on the world as possible. But tonight she paused. She was just across from him now, not quite close enough to touch, but close enough that he could hear the soft rustle of her coat when she folded her arms. For a long moment they didn't speak. They never really had. A few nods, a quiet thank you, but mostly silence. Ethan took a breath and broke it. "I'm Ethan," he said softly, like he wasn't sure if she'd answer. He wasn't pushing, just offering. Her eyes lifted slowly. They were sharper than he expected, green or maybe gray, but filled with a kind of exhaustion he recognized too well. The kind you only get from surviving things no one claps for. For a beat, he thought she might not say anything. Then she looked down at her hands, adjusting the sleeve over a frayed wrist, and whispered Clara. Just that. A single word, fragile and beautiful. It hit the air like a secret, released a name hidden too long behind walls and shadow. He nodded once, respectful. Clara, he repeated, letting the syllables settle between them. Nice to finally meet you. She looked at him again, more directly now. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Not polite, but grateful. You didn't have to leave those sandwiches, she murmured. Ethan blinked, surprised. I didn't know if you'd want them. I didn't, she said, then shrugged slightly. But I needed them. That answer stayed in the air a little longer than anything else they'd ever exchanged. Ethan wasn't sure what to say. He wanted to ask her more where she was, from why she was here so late, if she had someone waiting for her when her shift ended, but he didn't. It wasn't time. The name was enough. The fact that she'd spoken it meant something. Clara shifted on her feet like she was about to go, but then paused again. She glanced over at the door, then back at him. I used to work in places like this, she said quietly, but not like this. Ethan tilted his head gently. You still sweeping, though? She let out the softest breath of a laugh, more air than sound, but it felt like a miracle in the silence. Yeah, she said, I guess I am. The delivery truck rumbled off in the distance and the air grew still again. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't need to. She turned back into the mall's back hallway, broom in hand, shoulders just a little less heavy, and Ethan watched her go, something in his chest stirring. A thread had been tied between them. Fragile maybe, but real. He didn't know her story, not yet, but he'd just learned her name, and in a world where people passed each other like shadows, that alone felt like a beginning. Ethan stood still, the air between them shifting like a curtain, slowly drawn back. Clara didn't look up right away. Her fingers were gently tracing the worn edges of the framed photo. Her eyes focused not on the buildings, but on the people in the picture, men in suits. Women in pin curls, a groundbreaking ceremony frozen in time. The Harrow Plaza before it had polished marble floors and overpriced boutiques, before the chain stores, before Ethan mopped it nightly, before she swept quietly beside him. My father built this place, she said again, her voice steady but distant, brick by brick. He dreamed it would be more than a mall, a hub, a place where stories happen. Ethan's mouth parted slightly. The truth fell into place with quiet weight. The name, the way she walked the halls like they remembered her. The way she noticed things, small things that most people missed. You're Clara Harrow, he asked softly. She nodded, once, eyes still on the past. Or was. I dropped the name for a while. Ethan sat down slowly on the bench beside her, unsure of what to say. The silence wrapped around them, not awkward, just full. He finally spoke. Why would the daughter of a man who built a landmark be sweeping it at 2 a.m.? Clara smiled faintly. It wasn't bitter, just tired. Because legacies get complicated. After my father passed, the board changed. They wanted sleek, fast, profitable. I wanted to keep his heart in it. They didn't. You fought them. I lost, she said simply. Got voted out of my own father's company. They called it restructuring. I called it betrayal. Ethan's hands curled around his thermos. I'm sorry. Clara turned to him, now her eyes gentle. Don't be. You've treated me more like a human than most people ever did when they knew who I was. That landed hard. She continued, her voice softer. When I couldn't sleep, I came here. Thought maybe sweeping the floors would help me remember what it all used to feel like. Turns out mopping at 2 a.m. with someone who saves you a sandwich feels a lot more real than boardrooms ever did. They sat together in the quiet hum of after hours. I don't know what to say, Ethan murmured. Clara looked over, her expression warmer now. You don't have to say anything, Ethan. You already listened. And for the first time, Ethan understood what kind of loneliness a person could carry, even if they had their name carved in marble. He looked back at the photo, then at her. Your dad built it, but I think you're the only one left still keeping it alive. Her eyes glistened just a little. That night, they didn't go back to cleaning right away. They sat there, two people from different lives, bound by quiet hours, unspoken stories, and something new forming in the spaces between their words. The soft echo of their footsteps bounced along the empty corridor as Ethan and Clara walked side by side, mop and broom in hand, the hush between them deeper now. Not awkward, but thoughtful. She had just said it so simply, so matter of fact, that Ethan almost didn't know how to respond. Her father, the original Mr. Harrow, had died 2 years ago. The founder, the visionary, the man whose name gleamed in gold letters above the main entrance. And Clara, his daughter, had been next in line until something corporate greed, clashing ideals, maybe both pushed her away. He looked over at her, the woman in the plain sweatshirt, her ponytail tucked through a cap like any other cleaner on staff. Except she wasn't. She was the heart of the place. Still here, quietly sweeping. But I didn't want anyone to know, she said again, glancing toward the flickering mall map display. I needed to see what the place had become without my name attached to it. Who still cared? Ethan leaned on his mop handle, thoughtful. And did you? She smiled faintly, eyes soft but tired. I met you. That silenced him. Something warm passed between them, invisible but steady. He broke the moment gently. So, why keep sweeping? Clara exhaled, not heavily, almost like she had been waiting for that question. Because dust doesn't care about titles, she said. It settles on marble and mop buckets alike. And sometimes kindness is easier to find in silence than in speeches. Ethan let that sit for a moment. The silence once again felt sacred. You're different, he said finally. She chuckled. So are you. You didn't ask me a million questions. You didn't treat me like a ghost or a charity case. I just thought you were tired. Like the rest of us, Clara nodded slowly. And you gave me sandwiches, he grinned. The turkey ones are the best. They both laughed, quiet but real. It wasn't a beginning, not yet, but it was no longer just routine. There was something else in their work now. In every hallway they swept, every light they passed under. Two people, both weathered and weary, both here because life had taken them where they didn't expect to be, but maybe, just maybe, exactly where they were meant to end up. The rhythm of the mall changed after that night. Clara and Ethan still swept and mopped, but the silence between them was no longer quiet, it was full, with shared stories, glances that lingered just a second longer, and the comfortable closeness that forms when two people have nothing to prove and everything to carry. Clara began showing up with 2 travel mugs, not one. I figured you deserve better than vending machine sludge. She'd say, handing him a cup of real coffee, hot, rich, and far too expensive for a night janitor's paycheck. He never asked where she got it. She never explained. Hazelnut, he'd ask with mock suspicion. Don't complain. Next time it's black with no sugar. They'd drink as they worked, walking slow laps around the atrium, stopping near the window where moonlight slanted through dusty glass. Sometimes they talked about Harrow Plaza, how it used to hum with life. Clara shared stories of walking these halls as a child, her hand in her father's. How he used to tell her, if you want to build something lasting, you start with the floors. Ethan nodded. He sounds like a man who understood the ground beneath his feet. Clara looked at him, then really looked. So do you. Another night she asked softly, do you have a photo of Lily? Ethan reached for his wallet without hesitation. The photo inside was creased and a little faded, but his voice softened as he slid it out. In it, Lily wore her pajamas, proudly holding up a crayon drawing that said in big bright letters, "My dad is a hero." Clara stared at it for a long time, her thumb gently brushing the edge of the photo. She's lucky, she said. Ethan looked at the image too, as if seeing it anew. No, I'm the lucky one. She reminds me who I want to be. They stood side by side, leaning on a railing overlooking the still empty mall. Neither spoke for a while. They didn't need to. Sometimes the most honest things aren't said aloud. They're shared in the quiet between two people who've known loss, who've carried too much, and who are just starting to believe that maybe they don't have to carry it alone. The night Clara didn't show, Ethan tried not to notice. He swept the halls alone, the silence colder than usual. He told himself she was just tired, maybe had other business to attend to. But truthfully, the absence left a hollow space in his routine, one he didn't realize had been filled by more than just shared coffee and conversation. The next afternoon, after walking Lily home from school, he saw it, a neatly wrapped box sitting on the front step of their apartment. Lily squealed. "Is it for me, Daddy?" There was no name on the wrapping, just a small card tucked under the ribbon, written in elegant script. For Lily, from someone who knows what it's like to grow up alone at the top. See, Ethan opened the box slowly. Inside was a brand new backpack, sturdy canvas, bright colors, broidered stars across the front. Tucked inside it was a matching pencil case and a set of coloring markers, the really nice kind of the ones Ethan could never justify buying. Lily gasped like it was Christmas. "Daddy, it has secret pockets," Ethan smiled, but his throat tightened. He held the note in his hand a moment longer. He'd seen the way Clara looked at Lily's photo. He remembered the softness in her voice when she said, "She's lucky." Now the pieces clicked. This wasn't a gift from obligation. It was from understanding. From a woman who had grown up with everything money could buy, except maybe warmth. Except someone to say, "I see you, I care." Lily hugged the backpack like it was alive. "Can I draw her a thank you card?" she asked. Ethan knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her cheek. "Yes, baby. That's a beautiful idea." And as Lily began drawing hearts and stars on pink construction paper, Ethan sat back quietly. There were still things he didn't know about Clara Harrow. But now he knew this much: behind the quiet, behind the cap and mop, was someone who hadn't just come back to the plaza to sweep floors. She'd come back to find something real. And maybe, just maybe, she had. 2 weeks passed in quiet rhythm. Ethan kept mopping the same polished tiles, humming old songs under his breath, sneaking Lily's lunchbox notes into his pocket for luck. Clara still swept, though. Now they shared coffee on break and spoke without hiding behind silence. He never asked more about her past, and she never demanded explanations for his. It worked. Quietly, simply, it worked. Then came the call. The cleaning supervisor waved him over one evening. "Manager's office, now!" Ethan wiped his hands and headed upstairs, confused. He hadn't broken anything, not that he knew of. Inside the cramped office, behind the cluttered desk, sat Mr. Holtz, the building manager. But next to him sat a man Ethan had never met before. Clean suit, confident smile, regional badge, clipped to his jacket. Mr. Reed, the director, began, "We've been reviewing operations here at Harrow Plaza, and it's come to our attention that, well, a few things run smoother than they used to." Ethan raised an eyebrow. I just do my job, sir. Yes, the man nodded. But how you do it with care, consistency, and quiet leadership is why we're opening a new position, a supervisory role, overseeing team training night logistics and facility safety. Ethan froze. Wait, me? The manager cleared his throat. You were recommended. By who? Ethan asked, though his voice barely left him. The regional director just smiled. Someone who sees the value in people who show up before dawn, who clean while others sleep, who don't ask for credit and probably wouldn't take it even if we offered. Ethan sat slowly stunned. Clara. It had to be Clara. His mind flashed to her adjusting dusty frames, picking up candy wrappers, watching more than she ever admitted. His throat tightened. I don't have a college degree. Doesn't matter, the director said. You've got trust, and people follow those they trust. A beat of silence passed before Ethan found his voice. Then yeah, I'd be honored. The men shook hands. As he left the office, the fluorescent hallway seemed brighter somehow. The floors he'd mopped for years now led somewhere new. That night when he told Lily, she screamed with joy and tackled him on the couch. And hours later, when he returned to the plaza for his shift, he found a single folded note waiting on the ledge by the coffee machine. Knew they'd see what I did. Congratulations. He smiled. A job offer, a backpack, and a silent woman with her father's fire. It all began with kindness, given without asking for anything in return. The hum of the city below was quieter from the rooftop, muffled by distance and height. Ethan stepped through the metal door, the air crisper, up there edged with spring. Clara was already leaning against the railing, hair pulled back, her hoodie drawn tight. Her sweeping cap rested beside her, forgotten. The rooftop floodlight cast a gentle glow across her face, and for a moment she looked like someone caught between two lives, not hiding, just pausing. You did this? Ethan asked, holding the folded job letter in his hand. Clara didn't turn around. She stared out at the glittering skyline as if waiting for a sign. You earned it, she said simply. Ethan joined her at the rail. Still, you didn't have to say anything. I didn't, Clara replied. I just reminded the right people to open their eyes. He let out a breath. You're not what I expected from someone with your name. Harrow. That made her glance sideways, a dry smile tugging at her mouth. You're not what I expected from someone who mops floors with kindness. They both laughed softly, gently, like it belonged only to that hour. The wind picked up, brushing strands of her hair across her cheek. She didn't brush them away. Why the rooftop, he asked after a beat. Clara looked up at the stars. Because this was his favorite spot. My dad, he used to bring me here when the mall was first built. Said it was important to see what you built from above. To remember the people walking beneath it all. Ethan looked down at the city lights at lives still moving in windows and headlights, in neon signs and passing trains. And what do you see now? He asked quietly. She turned to him fully. Someone who reminded me what leadership is supposed to look like. Ethan swallowed hard, caught off guard by the weight of her words. I'm not a leader, Clara. You are, she said. Not because of your title, but because you show up, listen, and leave things better than you found them. That's more than I saw in most of the boardroom. They stood in silence a while longer. Finally, she said, this was my last shift. Tomorrow the board votes on my return. I might take it. I might not. Ethan nodded. Whatever you choose, you'll do it right. Clara smiled, the rooftop light catching in her eyes. You ever think we're just passing by each other, she asked, until the world decides we need to collide? Ethan chuckled. Sometimes it takes a sandwich and a broom, and a little trust, she added. They stood there as the city exhaled below them, two strangers once now, something quietly more. Neither asked for forever, but both knew whatever came next had already started. The locker room was quiet, save for the soft creak of hinges and the buzz of a flickering light overhead. Ethan had just finished his shift, hands aching from the hours of mind still circling Clara's rooftop, words from the night before. Something felt final in the air, like the end of a chapter you didn't want to turn, but knew you had to. His locker, usually dull and untouched, had something different tonight. A folded note taped gently to the metal door. Ethan paused, fingers hovering, just before pulling it free. The handwriting was unmistakable, clean, deliberate, elegant, in a way that didn't try to impress, just express. He peeled it off and opened it slowly, the paper soft like it had been held and considered for a long time. Some legacies are built in daylight, but the quiet ones like yours keep everything standing. Thank you. Clara. Ethan read it twice, then again. His chest tightened in a way he couldn't quite name. It wasn't grief. It wasn't awe. It was something in between, the feeling of being seen after years of being invisible. She was gone. He somehow knew that without even checking the usual spots. Her broom wouldn't be resting by the dock. The vending machine wouldn't have an extra cup of coffee left on top. The rooftop would be silent, starry, but still. But she'd left this, and maybe that was more than enough. He tucked the note into his wallet right beside the photo of Lily holding her, "My dad is a hero" drawing. Then he closed his locker with a soft clang and stood there a moment longer, breathing in the air of something finished and something just beginning. As he walked out, the corridors felt different. Not brighter, not cleaner, but steadier somehow. Because now he believed that some legacies weren't made of marble and brass plaques. Some were written in quiet hands and late-night sandwiches, in rooftop silences, and in notes on locker doors. 6 months later, Harrow Plaza gleamed more than it had in years. Shiny tile, smudge-free glass, not just clean, cared for. Ethan walked the corridors now not as a janitor, but as the night operations supervisor. He trained new hires with patience, not policy. He told them that pride wasn't in the paycheck, it was in the way people felt safe walking the halls you cleaned. That respect wasn't earned by title, but by showing up every single night. And sometimes after school, Lily came skipping through the wide marble corridors, her backpack bouncing, her laughter echoing where echoes had once only been for silence. She'd sit near the food court with homework and a hot cocoa waiting for him to finish his rounds. One evening, as the sun set through the atrium windows and gold light slanted across the floor, Ethan paused at the far end of the hallway. There, beneath a newly framed portrait of Gregory Harrow, founder of the plaza, a discreet bronze plaque had been mounted. It read, "To those who keep the lights on and the floor steady." CH, and no fanfare, no press release. Just a quiet tribute in the quietest part of the building. Ethan smiled every time he passed it, because he knew who really put it there. And he knew she had seen him, not just the mop in his hands, but the heart behind it. And that, more than anything, had changed everything.